What's going on, people? Shalom, Safanawoha, and all that good stuff. Just quick, want to go over something quick. I ain't been on here for a while, so just kind of came upon me or whatnot. And basically, it's in, we're in Deuteronomy or Devarim uh, 21, and this is a defiant son and capital punishments to bring some understanding into certain stuff. So it says, if a man has a wayward and defiant son who does not heed his father or mother and does not obey them, even after they discipline him, his father and mother shall take hold of him and bring him out to the elders of his town at the place of his community. They shall say to the elders of his town, this son of ours is a disloyal and defiant. He does not heed us. He is a glutton and a drunkard. Thereupon the men of his town shall stone him to death. Thus you will sweep out evil from your midst. All Israel will hear and be afraid. Okay, now it sets the tone for capital punishment because it's just giving one of a few examples of what a capital punishment is, and when it proceeds further or whatnot, you're going to see about being hung on a tree or what have you. So it's going to go into that. So I'm going to continue. If a man is guilty of a capital offense and is put to death, pause. What is a capital offense in ancient Israel, or Yisrael, or Yasher Allah, or Yasher Al, or the Yisrael, or whatever we want to call it, or the Eve, what is that? What is a capital punishment? We will soon find out. Which one of them was just given? A wayward and defiant son that does not heed his mother or father, which thus will be breaking one of the 10 phrases, 10 utterances, or known better as the 10 commandments. And that's to honor your father and mother, that your days might be long upon the land which the Most High your power giveth you, or the Most High your Elohim will give you, or Elohim, or El, or whatever you want to call it. So here we go. That's just one. So it's already known that he's guilty, and you impale him on a stake. The King James Shakespearean English version says a tree. You must, and here's what you must do. You must not let his corpse remain on the stake, next page, overnight, but must bury him the same day. Now, same day, that's talking about in the daytime. For an impaled body is an affront to Elohim, or to God, or the Most High. You shall not defile the land that the Most High your power is giving you to possess. So going into it, this is just pretty much, this is a quick one, it's pretty quick. So another scripture comes to mind. It's not too far from me. I'm going to slide over to Deuteronomy 24:16. It says here, parents shall not be put to death. And remember, as I'm going to mark this right now, put to death. So that's the key thing and theme in this, as far as capital punishment. So again, it has to be a punishment worthy enough to constitute what we would call in English the death sentence. So it says, parents shall not be put to death for children, nor children be put to death for parents. A person, that's talking about in a singular, shall be put to death only for his own crime, which most people know as sin or hate, in a modern Hebrew. I don't know how to say it in the Lashon Kodash, that sort of situation. But when I look at this, I automatically think about the Jesus individual, the Yahawashai, the Yahusha, the Yehoshua, the Yahoshua, the Yeshaya, the Yahshua, JC, Jesus, Beetlezeus, and all the rest of them, Jupiter or whatever we want to call them, that individual. So, how is he going to be able to pay for the sins of everyone else when that just made mention? The King James Version, I know that one by memory. The father shall not be put to death for the children, neither shall the children be put to death for the fathers, but every man shall be put to death for his own sin. And that's talking about women too. So with that being stated, and I'm also in the coffee shop too, I'm at a Pete's Coffee, but I thought it necessary to go over this. So with that being stated, how is a man going to pay for the sins for everyone else that is around him, or for a whole nation, and Gentiles included, or Goyim, or whatever you want to call them, when the Torah does not support that? The Torah meaning teachings or instructions, or if you want to call it Tawara, whatever you want to call it, meaning teachings or instructions. So they're like E40 says, since we're in the Bay Area, Richmond, well, I'm not in Richmond now, but E40 said, these are the things you need to know, the rules and regulations. So the rules and regulations is the Torah, in fact. And so, in someone's theory, they've come up with a very cunning doctrine to get most people to believe, especially Christians, that human blood can be shed for the can be the remission of sins, but there's nowhere in the Hebrew Torah that states anywhere that a Davidic descendant from the line of David is going to be able to come here and be able to shed his Hebraic, Davidic, Jesaic, I guess you could say it, trying to sound smart, but the Davidic blood to be able to shed for human beings, when you have other means of in Torah that can pay for sins of the people or whatnot, and not every single sin constitutes a capital punishment. Might I add, which I'm not adding. It's not in Torah as far as what I was mentioning before, that there's nowhere stated that a Davidic descendant can die for the sins of his fellow 12 tribes. And that's acceptable in the eyes of the Most High. And which it isn't, because the Most High is in his own Torah, written by Masha, Moshe, Musa, Moses, whatever you want to call him. It was written by Moses, but it's really the laws of the Most High written by Moses, known as the law or the laws of Moses, just to get, or Moshe, or Masha, whatever. So, to be more frank with it, again, there's nowhere in the Hebrew Torah that states that a Davidic descendant will be able to die for a capital punishment that he did not commit, but other people have committed capital punishments. He can step in and take, I don't even want to use that word. He's able to step in and die, take death, and that's supposed to automatically pay for everything. If that's the case, why is there still sin? Because if we're talking New Testament letters and all of that, 1 John 3 and 4, whosoever committed sin transgresseth also the law, for sin is the transgression of the law. So there has to be a law in effect in order for you to break, in order to call it sin. But the Torah also makes it clear, don't add on or diminish off from it. Don't add or take away from it, in other words. So people are adding on to the Torah where there's none of the sort that states that a Davidic descendant can pay for, or, to be the remission of sins, or the blood can be shed, human blood, by the way. And when we're talking about a presumptuous sin, which means you've done it on purpose, you are aware of what you've done, there's a whole nother means to deal with that. But if it's one that's done by accident, then you have a sheep or a goat of the first year, and that being a female of the first year without blemish. If it's one, then you have the other one with the male of the first year without blemish, and so forth and so on. But that was basically going into capital punishment. It didn't specify, it did exactly, but it didn't go through all of them. That was just a few. But I thought it necessary to go over that. So I am an Evan, known as an Israelite or a Hebrew. Ancient, by the way, not Jewish, but ancient, just to distinguish and differentiate for those who may view the video later. And so, yeah, that would be pretty much it. Here's food for thought. For those who believe that this individual can die, for your sins, and it'll just be paid for, it is finished and all of that, right? For those who are Israelites or even Jewish people, either one, who keep the Chogs or the Moedim, or known as the set apart feast, the Kadosh feasts, or the high holy days, or whatever. There's 7 of them, as we know. For those, I'm talking about mentioned in Vayikra or Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. And one of the most important, if not the most important, Chog, or Moed or Moedim, would be known as Yom Kippur or Yom Kippurim, or known as Day of Atonement to a Christian who actually reads the whole Bible. And remember that day, celebrate your Sabbath from sundown to sundown. That is talking about a specific Shabbat or type, which technically is talking about Yom Kippur, should be known as Yom Kippurim, Day of Atonement, because you've committed more than one transgression through the year. The goal, people, is to get better with the Most High. And so with Yom Kippurim, that day is specifically set aside for dealing with the forgiveness of unpresumptuous sins. In other words, you didn't transgress the Torah or the teachings or instructions on purpose. Where what we want to see, will mercy be granted on high, before we proceed with my favorite personally is Sukkot, HaSukkot, known as Feast of Tabernacles. Now, to get beyond the debates of should you keep it in the land of our captivity, as I call land of detention or punishment, that's a whole nother topic. I'll save that one for another video. But as far as what I'm speaking on, food for thought. If he paid for the sins of people, and Yom Kippurim is known as the day of the forgiving of sins or whatnot, unpresumptuous ones, then just think about it. How is this individual going to die on a cross and pay for the sins of everybody? What was the purpose of Yom Kippurim then? It didn't say in Leviticus 23 or Vayikra 23 about celebrate your Sabbath from sundown to sundown and all that in vain. Oh, until the Redeemer, Shiloh or Yahawashai, Yahusha, or Yeshua, whatever name, Yeshaya, whatever name you want to call it, or whatnot, and stuff, and stuff. So just think about that for a second. Yom Kippurim represents the forgiving of sins on that day, if it be granted from the Most High on high, for ones that you didn't do on purpose, ignorant sins, meaning you simply didn't know. How was a man going to be able to be put on a cross or whatnot, be put on a cross, and then pay for the sins of everybody when that's what the Day of Atonements or Yom Kippurim is meant for? Think about that for a second, and I'll basically cut it there. Hopefully I know how to cut it. Shalom and Fafanawoha. I'll do